Thank you so much. Welcome to Drop-In Ballet Academy. This is our second session. I want to thank you for your support for this project. It means so much to me. This is all the material that I wish that I had been given. I now see the things that I didn't know before. You don't know what you don't know. Now I know what I didn't know, and I wish someone had told me. But they didn't know I didn't know either. So here we are. Someone asked me, what is the point of taking a class about a class? And they said, don't you just go to class and do stuff and then get better at it every week? And I thought about that for a really long time. And I came to the conclusion that it's not how it works. That's how I thought it worked, but now I no longer believe that. When you start to do something for the first time, it's unfamiliar. It feels awkward. It feels uncomfortable. And then you do it a second time and a third time. It starts to feel familiar and comfortable and less awkward. Is the feeling of comfort and familiarity the same thing as actually being able to make progress? And I no longer believe that that is the case. I think without understanding what the bigger goal is, you become comfortable in your error. And especially as drop-in students, we don't have the hyper supervision that formal ballet training would give you to keep you from practicing in error, not just weeks or months, but years. And so this is all about helping us become our own supervisors and know what we're looking for, because no one's going to tell us that. And we can actually learn this stuff. So, driver's ed, the insurance companies know that when kids take driver's ed, they are better drivers. So if going to class is driving down the road, this is the classroom part where we're going to talk about what do those lines mean, what do those signs mean, or what do you have to look for, keep in mind this, that, the rules of the road. It makes you a better driver, and I'm hoping that this will make you not just a better student, but a happier student, and you will understand the role that you have as a student. It's not just open the mouth and mommy bird push that stuff down your throat. It's not like that. We have a job to do, and we're going to do most of the work because we don't have the formal education that ballet requires. So, that being said, I promised we were going to talk about music. So, most Western music, that is that of European origin and specifically ballet music, or ballet music specifically created for ballet class, follows a pattern of 8. So music has a beat, and you can learn to feel that beat. The pattern of 8 means that when there's a melody on top of it, that melody follows is a musical phrase. There's a phrase. The music is a phrase after phrase after phrase. They're all strung together like sentences in a paragraph. You don't have to know grammar to know how to write a sentence. In fact, you don't learn grammar until high school, but you can still speak grammatically correctly, so it isn't necessary for you to know music, how to read notes, time signature, blah, blah, blah. You don't need that. We just need an ear for it, just like you have an ear for language. So if a musical phrase is like a sentence, then a sentence begins with a capital letter and ends with a period. There are some rare instances where 2 independent clauses that are closely related follow one another and they're joined with a semicolon. This happens very rarely, but it does happen. The musical parallel to that is this. A musical phrase will have a clear beginning and either a resolve or a cliffhanger. And then the next count will be definitely another capital letter, will be another beginning. So let's take a really simple song. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. Now I know my ABCs. Next time, won't you sing with me? All right. So that was a simple song, and you can see how the period is the resolve. Let's do it again. You see me? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. Now I know my ABCs. Next time, won't you sing with me? So that's an easy example. Okay, let's do another one. La 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 Eight. And we could go on and on. You can practice with pop music, it might work, but you can also practice with, look on your, almost everybody has some kind of music app that they use, and you can look up ballet class music, and it'll give you an infinite number of albums you can look at, and you can practice finding the eights in the melody and finding those 8 counts that correspond to the phrase. Now this is a layperson's explanation of music. Just like you don't need grammar to know what a complete sentence is, you don't need any musical knowledge, you do not need to know about measures, beats, quarter notes, eighths notes, dot, dot, dot. You don't need any of that. We're just listening actually to a melody. So that being said, between each count of a song, each beat, we could call this the tempo. That's the heartbeat, the tempo. Every beat, that's a count that matches that phrase of 8. That's how we know where it is. Between each one of those, you can either divide it evenly in half or into thirds. So I call this, if you can divide it in half, that's an even beat. And if you divide it into thirds, it's odd. Time signature, who knows? 4/4, 2/4, that's even. 3/4, 6/8. Do we know? Do we care? It doesn't matter. You don't even have to worry about it. Just listen to the melody. So, an even song, which you divide in half, is counted as 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and. An odd song, like Silent Night, is divided in thirds. La 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 la. And you might recognize that as a waltz. Some waltzes are known to be waltzes. You would recognize them immediately. Silent Night, you might not have thought of as a waltz, but it's a 3 count. You would count it as 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and now some people count it 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3. That's too many 2s and 3s for my taste. I think it gets really confusing. So I prefer 1 and 2 and you can say whatever you want in your head. They can't be both. A song is either odd or even. And you learn to hear this by listening to music. I mean, I read some ridiculous thing on the internet that said, you can't learn to count music unless you learn it as a kid. Like, who is saying this stuff? You can't learn ballet unless you start when you're a kid. You can't learn this if you don't start when you're a kid. These people are just so, I don't understand it. You can learn anything if someone can explain it to you. So, we have odd, we have even. Now, when you come to class, the music that you're going to hear has an introduction. And the introduction is almost always 4 beats. So they count it 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 1 is usually action where you start. But the introduction is going to tell you what the heartbeat is. You find those 4 heartbeats, that tells you what the pace of the song is. And then you will also be able to try to divide those beats. You will know immediately, or you will learn to know immediately whether it's an even or an odd tempo. That's it. So when the teacher is giving an exercise, they often give the exercise without music, just numbers. So they might say, these are feet, right? Tendu. We might be going 1, 2, and 3, and 4, 5, 6, and 7, and 8. 1, 2. So what they're saying is that no matter what, if they give the exercise like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever the music starts to play, when you hear 1, that's when you do 1. When you hear 2, that's when you do 2. The numbers are corresponding to the beats of the phrase as you hear them. Not as she said them, not as he said them. As you hear them coming out of the piano or coming out of the recorder, the speaker. So there's another method of counting that is out there, and I have heard very prestigious teachers use this method. I don't understand why you would use this method, but it's out there, and you may come across it. And I would call it the action counting method. So they would give an exercise, and 1, and 2, and 1, 2, 3, and 1, and 2, and 1, 2, 3. So what they're saying is they're counting 2 slow and 3 quick. And they're indicating to you how the relative tempo of those actions with the sing-song quality of their voice. In that example, those numbers have nothing to do with the musical beat at all. Maybe 1, maybe 2, but once we get to the fast ones, this just doesn't mean anything. So an exercise that's given like that, and 1 and 2 and 1, 2, 3 and 1 and 2 and 1, 2, 3 would be counted in the 8 method, and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8. Start over 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8. Now you know where you are in the music. That's clear to me. You're going to see it? It might confuse you, because here you are, innocent lamb. You don't know what all these numbers are. You're trying to make sense of it all. And system A cannot be reconciled with any rules with system B. It's not the same system. But nobody tells you that. And that same teacher might switch to the 8 system when they get into the center. And so you could be seriously confused. And you could say, I give up, and I'm just going to watch Susie. Well, we talked about this in the other class. It's like once you start needing to look at something for feedback, where is she? Like, now you've lost connection to your whole body and your head especially, because now you have to look at somebody else. And you know what? Maybe she doesn't know how to count either. When we all know how to count, we can practice on different parts of the globe. Somebody gives you a recording and we can all practice in different countries. And then we can all come together and dance at the same time, because we all know how the action goes with the music. We don't need to practice together. The music is what brings us all together. Okay, so we did odd, even, we did counting, we did the action method, we did you are not crazy and you can learn this. Okay, so that's music. On the poster, I talked about dance defined, which is kind of presumptuous and possibly arrogant, but because ballet specifically is so, we can get so technical and so concerned with all these things that we have to remember. And I think this is a good time to recall or to consider that dance is a kind of a reflex. Dance is a response to music. It's music comes into your body, goes into your ears, it resonates through your whole system, and then it inspires you to move. Like babies who don't know anything about anything, and they're learning to stand up, or maybe they're not even standing up, but they hear music, they move. They just move. Like that is the purest example of dance, is that it just motivates, it inspires you. You are danced by music. When you lose that connection to the music, it's not really that fun anymore. And in my personal definition that I have just thrown out there, it's not dance. You're moving, music is playing, but those two things are not connected in any way. And you're missing out. Or we're missing out. I was missing out because I got so just in my head about this, that, and the other thing, instead of remembering that, this is dancing. Okay, I'm going to refer to my notes here. And I'm going to read this because I think I did a good job. Hi, it's okay. I think I did a good job of defining this as, why am I bothering with this? Because in our desire to improve, we may be so invested in instructions and checklists and do's and don'ts and judgments, and we can become so mechanically focused on this process that the joy of feeling the movement is lost. When we talked last time about the process of being fully physically aware, of conducting experiments and trying to feel what we are doing right now. And then we have these ideas of counting, like learning how to count and all that stuff. We have these two things that we're learning. The process is the most important. And then as we learn to count, we may not hit. We're trying to conduct our experiments to the music. The music is telling us when to do what. And eventually, we'll get it like this. But the experimental part is so important. Rather than sacrifice your presence, your awareness, to just rushing with the music, it's a very fine point. And I'm talking about it because I'd like this pursuit to be joyful always. And I'd like us to never lose sight of what dance is. And we can make learning and the process a dance in itself. We are dancing when we are experimenting. We are. And we're learning to do our experiments to the music. Doesn't matter if you miss your count, as long as you know where the count is, and you just get it next time. Because we're developing our nervous system, and you can't always, your reflexes have to be developed, and that's part of the process. So then I promised I would talk about vocabulary. Again, another thing that nobody ever told me. So you may go to class A and teacher will use words and you see things and you try to remember them and think, okay. And then you go to another class. Maybe the second class you go to is different. a different teacher, a different place. And then you are seeing the same things, but you're hearing different words. Or maybe you're hearing the same words, but you're seeing different things. And you may think, oh, I thought that was this, oh, I don't get it. Okay, I'll learn it all over again. No, don't. Because what's happening is that every teacher speaks a dialect of ballet. There are different schools of ballet, and there is a subset of terminology that just doesn't sync up. They use the same words to describe different things. They use different words to describe the same thing. And it can be extremely confusing to a beginner because you know who you think is losing their mind? You. You think you don't remember. You think this is too hard. You think this is too complicated. Or that guy's a hack and this one is full of crap and blah, blah, blah. And you don't know who to trust and you don't want to go to some, hack ballet class. You want the real thing. They're all real. They're just speaking a different dialect. Only one drop-in class that I ever went to in my life did the teacher say, I was trained in this school and these are the terms that I'm using and you may have learned them differently. Wow, that was a great thing to say at the beginning of a drop-in class. They don't say that all the time. So you don't know. Now you know. All right, so that's vocabulary. And if I had it all to do over again, I think that I really wouldn't worry too much about vocabulary. Why? Because verbal processing uses a different part of your brain. I think what I would have done is just made up my own terminology so that every time I saw that thing, I would like Google translate it into what I know it is, and I would always use that. Because my experience was I didn't know this about vocabulary. I was taking classes with one teacher and I learned I was invested in this vocabulary. I went to another class and the exercises were, all the actions were familiar to me. I'd seen all of them, but the teacher was using terms in a different way. And so when they were calling out the exercise, I had a brain short circuit, like I couldn't do it because that word means something completely different to me. And there was I just stopped, there was no signal. Beep. It would be nice if I could just do everything. So I have to unlearn that. How powerful is verbal triggering? Why do I think that we want to stay away from it and maybe not get so crazy about learning vocabulary, but focus more on what you are seeing, like the actual thing itself, which you can make up a name for. That's always in your head. Speak your own ballet language. Why? Because this is why. We're going to do a little demonstration. So in your life, you know that this is your right hand, and this is right hand up, and this is right hand down. And this is your left hand, and this is left hand up, and left hand down. So let's say you go to a class, and all of a sudden, this is right hand down. And this is right hand up. You got that? This is right hand down. And this is right hand up. So now I'm going to give you some instructions, and you're going to try to do this experiment as I call it out. Ready? Right hand down. Right hand up. Left hand up. Left hand down. Right hand down. Both hands up. Both hands down. Clap. Now, I don't know about you, but when I was practicing this and I made it up, I had a headache. There was just so much what does it mean? What am I doing? What am I doing? Now, we're going to do it together. I'm going to turn around and we're going to do it together. You're just going to watch me and do it. So I would hope that that experiment was much easier. Wow, all you're doing is moving your arms around. I can watch that, I can follow that, I can remember that. It's a pattern, I get it. As soon as we start putting words in there, now we're using a totally different part of our brain. I don't know, it happened to me, and just letting you know that that's one of the pitfalls of getting really invested in vocabulary. Let's see. Vocabulary. Yeah, let's go back to driver's ed. And let's talk about signs. That's why signs are different colors and different shapes. They're not just a white square with words on it. You can't think that fast. You cannot react that fast. It's a picture. Picture of a person walking. Picture of a dog. Picture of a deer. No words. Red, yellow, white. It helps. Okay, so now this brings me to the topic of technique versus style. This is related to the vocabulary issue. Technique, as we talked about last week, is the internal experience. Process is about discovering the technique through experimentation, but technique is what you feel inside. The skill is what is observed. So as your technique improves, the skill that people see changes. Style is aesthetic preference. So we will learn to distinguish between style and technique, because technique is internal, the internal that creates the external form, and style is what is the form. And every school has different ideas about what the form is, or they have a vocabulary, they have a terminology, they have a lexicon, I don't know what you want to call it, but their series of formations that they require people to do are a little bit different. So if somebody, for example, back attitude. So I took a class with the same teacher for many years. We learned that back attitude is a position where you are, let's see if you can see it. No? It's a back extension where your knee is slightly out to the side. Your foot is in line with your knee, and your foot does not appear on the other side of your body. That's how I learned it. I was watching an advanced ballet class, and the teacher stopped the whole class, which I thought was strange because it doesn't usually happen in an advanced class, and she told everybody that back attitude was an arabesque with a bent leg and the foot should show. So if arabesque is the leg extended directly behind, then her attitude is like this. So the foot, there, can you see it, is appearing right. And she insisted that everybody is going to do it that way because that's what it was. Is it? You know, how does this happen? Is it right? Is it wrong? You know, what we can, now that we know what we know, and now that we know that every teacher is being trained in a different school, and they have different ideas of what is this and what is that, and that's totally fine. We can learn to do whatever they want, and we don't have to lose sleep at night thinking, oh, I learned this other thing and it's wrong. We can learn to do both. How could it be this way? I mean, I have theories. You know, there was some person with influence and power, and they felt back attitude was more comfortable for them that way. So they said, I am a person of influence and power. And this is now what back attitude is, because my hips are constructed such that I have great success with that position. I don't like this position at all, or I just don't like it. I don't know. doesn't really matter. But we will learn to distinguish between something that is what is correct is not the external really. Within parameters, okay, what is important is that we feel balanced. We feel the muscular activation. We feel the mechanical advantage. We feel everything working together in harmony. That's what's really important. Any position from any school, we can find that position. Unless we can't. Like maybe that type of attitude doesn't work for you. Do your best. Move on. Okay. Technique versus style. So now I would like to do a demonstration about demonstration. We talked about how the vocabulary is confusing, and a demonstration is a very good, every class that you go to, they're going to demonstrate. So reliance on vocabulary, less important, because they're always going to show you what it is. I mean, I've never been to a class where they didn't show. So the words are less important, because now we know, boy, it's so much easier to just see it. But let's do another demonstration about demonstration. So you are going to do what I do. Part 1 has no words. You're just going to do what you see me do. Okay? And now, the second part of this exercise is this. Okay.
Can I ask you to repeat that? I couldn't quite see it. Could you, maybe if you step back about a foot, then I'll be able to see it a little better. Thanks.
Okay. 1. And 2. Second part of this exercise is me telling you what I'm doing, and you're going to do it with me. So you're standing very relaxed with your arms by your sides, and you're just going to swing your arms away from your center and hold them there and feel that muscular engagement. And then you're going to drop your arms to your sides. Okay. The second part of this exercise is you're going to rotate your upper arm bone gently from the shoulder such that the crease of your elbow faces front, and as you lift your arms, the crease of your elbow will be facing the ceiling. And you're going to hold your arms like that and feel that, and then bring your arms down. And the third part of this exercise is you're going to just rotate your palms to face front, and then you're going to raise your arms to the sides such that your palms are facing the ceiling. And feel that, and bring your arms down. The purpose of this demonstration is I felt 3 different muscular engagements when I did those 3 exercises, because that's how it works. The muscles are activated based on the placement of the bones. And if we're not rotating this bone, we're going to use different muscles than if we are. So there were 3 different feelings that we had with the second part of that exercise. The first part, I don't know what you felt. I don't know what you saw. Maybe your eyes were drawn to the movement of my hands, and so you initiated that movement with your hand. Maybe your eyes were drawn to my upper arm, and you initiated that motion with your upper arm. I have no way of knowing what you did. I know what I did. And so the purpose of this demonstration is to show you that wherever your eyes are drawn, when you are imitating an action, that is influencing the choices that you make, how you're going to do that action, and what it even is. Is it an upper arm rotation? Is it a palm rotation? Without anybody telling you what it is, and you're left to guess, you just better be looking in the right place. And how do you know it's the right place? Everything's so new, there's so many things to look at. So that's the reason we did this, is to show you the pitfalls of imitation and how what your eyes are drawn to is going to influence the choices you make. Your eyes are usually going to be drawn to the thing that's moving the most, so the hands and the feet. But I can tell you right now that most of these actions, big movements of the arms and big movements of the legs, they are initiated much closer to home. That is this joint and this joint and the back. The arms are for the shoulders and the back. It's almost never, oh, my finger is going to do it. Right? We're focused on the initiation and the placement of these big joints here. And that's a demonstration about demonstration. So demonstrating in the first physical exercise we did is showing you that demonstration is really good at communicating what. And the thing that we just did now is showing you that demonstration is really not that good at demonstrating how. And we know that how is really important, and that's why we have our process, that's why we create experiments, and that's why we study this foundational work, so that we know we have some really good guidelines with which we conduct our experiments to get to our goal. Okay. The last bullet point that I had was on instruction and correction. So this is very heavily overlapping on all the stuff that we just talked about. Instruction. What if we used the word direction? If you think of instruction as direction, what's the difference? Instruction. Take the piece of wood and cut it in half and do this and do that. Direction. Look for the river. Turn right at the tree. Find the stone. Look under the stone for the worm. Like, direction is leading you to landmarks, things that are already there. It's guiding you on a path. Instruction, to me, is more like do. Direction is find, seek, find, seek, find. It's leading you forward. It's the difference between the construction project and the archaeological dig. So in the example that we did last week about the difference between treating directions to somewhere, go east down Main Street, turn right at the tree, when you reach the red schoolhouse, look across the street. That is teaching you to find landmarks and then make choices based on those things that are already there. Instruction, if you interpret those as instructions and you don't understand that the street is already there, then you start building a street. You don't understand the tree is there, you plant a tree. you know, and it becomes ridiculous. 100 years later, you still didn't find the thing that you were looking for because you were creating landmarks instead of looking for them when they were already there. So instruction is great when it helps you in terms of being directional. But when it becomes externally focused, do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that, where's the internal? Now that we know that we're focused on internal, we can reinterpret those instructions as if your foot goes here instead of there. Okay, what if I put my foot there instead of there? How can I change that experience? Like, if I put my foot there, what else can I change to make that whole thing feel different? Correction, similarly, is often externally based, external. Your arm isn't here, it's here. Okay. So what I did for many years was try to remember, okay, this is exactly in space where it's supposed to be. Let me remember where that is in space. Let me look at it in the mirror and let me always put it here in space. Instead of thinking, what does it feel like when my arm is here? And what can I experience in this range that feels like ballet technique? In other words, there was a game that kids play. I used to, it was called like hide the button. And one kid leaves the room and you put the button somewhere that's visible, but then the kid comes back into the room and they have to find the button. And as they walk around the room, the kids tell them if they get warmer or colder. Warmer, colder, warmer, colder. Physical adjustment to your body. Now I think of it as the warmer, colder. So if my arm was way out here and the teacher says it's down here, now I'm warmer. I'm going to look here. I'm going to stop looking for I'm going to stop looking for something up here. I'm going to start looking for it here. Or first position's a good one. A lot of times people have first position here, but it's really down here. Look here. Look here. I mean, is it exactly here? Is it exactly there? What about there? What about there? I just moved it. Could you tell? I mean, look here. Look around here. Just, oh no, you're colder. You're warmer, it's going to be somewhere here. Colder, warmer, that's it. We don't have to remember exactly where the person put our hands, but now that they have moved our hands and we know that we're going to be down here a little bit, now we can experiment with this area in this range. What am I doing? I'm relaxing, I'm moving my shoulders, I'm feeling the muscles in my arms and my hands and like how this whole thing, like there's a lot of work happening, but it doesn't look like it. But that's the work. It's all internal. So I believe that we have covered everything that I wanted to cover today. And what we're going to do is we're going to stop the recording, and then we're going to have questions. And yeah. So thank you very much. My presentation is over. Thank you.